Hi guys, and welcome to this run-through of chapters 6 and 7 of Animal Farm. Once again, I've taken some of your answers and used for this presentation, and I'll discuss the answers as we go through them. Alright, let's start with the questions for chapter 6. The first one is, explain how Napoleon exerts his rule over the other animals in chapter 6. Well, one of you said that he pronounces a death sentence upon Snowball because he believes that Snowball is the one who has destroyed the windmill, but it was actually a storm. Yes, and we have a quote here. Comrades, here and now I pronounce the death sentence upon Snowball, animal hero second class, and half a bushel of apples to any animal who brings him to justice. All right. Someone else wrote, he kind of forces them to work on Sundays because he takes half of their food away if they aren't agreeing to work, and because they need food, they work on Sundays. And once again, we have a quote. And in August, Napoleon announced that there would be work Sunday afternoons as well. Yes. Snowball becomes much more authoritarian. So it becomes much more of an authoritarian system that the animals live in. Moving on to the second question. How many of the original commandments do the pigs break in chapter 6? And secondly, how do the pigs try to justify their actions? Well, one of you said they break the rule no animal shall sleep in a bed. They justify that by saying the rule was no animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets, and said that they took the sheets off. Yes. Secondly, they break the rule, no animal shall kill any other animal. They want to kill Snowball, and they justify that by saying that he's a traitor. We also saw previously that Napoleon had his dogs kill other animals. So yes, that is a rule that has definitely been broken since Napoleon has been in charge. One more, they break the rule, all animals are equal. They do that by living in the house, and some of the animals are working harder than others. They justify that by saying the pigs need better sleep because they get up earlier and has control over everything. But yes, the rule that all animals are equal are definitely not being followed by the pigs. One more. Napoleon decided that from now on the farm would engage with neighboring farms, which breaks one of the commandments that clearly says not to have any dealings with human beings. Yes. And you could say, as one of you do, that the only commandments he hasn't broken is the two where no animal shall wear clothes and no animal shall drink alcohol. So to summarize, we could say that the conclusion is that the pigs actually start to violate the rules of conduct that they have created themselves. Moving on to the third question for chapter 6. You were asked to explain the effect of Napoleon's explanation of the destruction of the windmill. And one of you says that Napoleon tells the animals that it was Snowball who destroyed the windmill. That makes the animals hate Snowball and make them believe Napoleon and Squealer even more. They believe them because they're angry. They're angry because all the hard work they put into the windmill for a year is now gone. Yes, that's absolutely correct, and I think what's really happening is that Napoleon uses Snowball as a scapegoat that he can use when things on the farm go wrong, either because of his or the other pigs' faulty planning or execution of that planning. It's always nice to have a scapegoat, right? It's always nice to say, it's not my fault, it's someone else's fault. Moving on to chapter 7. The first question asks you, why does Napoleon not want humans to know about the real conditions of life on Animal Farm? One of you say that at that time failure was seen as a weakness, and Napoleon and the rest of Animal Farm couldn't afford being seen as weak. They needed to prove to the rest of farms that they were able to survive without the need of humans. As we see in the text, they even filled most of their bags with sand just to convince Mr. Whymper that they were doing just fine. And we have a quote to illustrate that. Napoleon ordered the almost empty bins in the store shed to be filled nearly to the brim with sand, and continued to report to the outside world that there was no food shortage on Animal Farm. Yes, this is correct. Why does he do that? Why is it so important? Well, apparently the outside perception of Animal Farm becomes more important to Napoleon than the actual conditions inside the farm. So the appearance, the outward appearance, is all of a sudden more important than how things are actually going. I think that's a very important point here, that the pride that Napoleon has about his farm, the pride of that farm as an outward thing, as his accomplishment in running his farm, the way that other people from the outside world view that becomes more important than how the animals are actually doing on the farm. All right, moving on to the second question for Chapter 7. Explain Napoleon's use of Snowball in Chapter 7. What effect does Snowball's presence have on the other animals? You say that he blames everything on Snowball. They say he's coming at night and doing all kinds of mischief, so it's his fault if they don't have any food because Snowball stole it. He also says that Snowball was allied with Mr. Jones from the very beginning. And now we know that's not true. Napoleon kind of uses him as a scapegoat, as we talked about with the windmill, because it's going downhill on Animal Farm and Napoleon knows it. He casts the blame on Snowball because he doesn't want the other animals to think it's his fault. That would ruin his leadership. Yes, just as we talked about with the windmill, any kind of failure where the responsibility falls on Napoleon or the other pigs, well, now he has a scapegoat in the form of Snowball, where all of that blame, all of that responsibility, well, that is placed on Snowball. That way, it's never Napoleon or the other pigs' fault if something goes wrong. All right, third and final question for Chapter 7. How do the increasing levels of class distinctions appear in the chapter? Now, class distinctions is when you have certain marks of different class levels in a society. That would be class distinctions. How do they appear? These sort of marks or characteristics of class division. Well, you say they appear as the pigs get to live comfortably in the farmhouse while the other animals have to literally work to death. Napoleon has the power to give himself everything he wants, including hero class, first and second. He also never really leaves the farmhouse. Now the hens are forced to lay eggs, so they're on an even lower rank than some of the other animals. Yes, and this is true. And what we can conclude is that all of a sudden, the new society, in which all animals were created equal, is now a class society. And that's a very, very important point. So make a note of that we have a revolution in order to create a classless society, and within a short time after that revolution, we now once again have a class society. That class society has been put into place by the revolutionaries who wanted to remove the class-based society before. Yeah. Okie dokie. Homework for our next lesson, read Chapter 8. All right, guys, I will see you.